There are moments in life when nothing seems to make sense. You wake up feeling the same ache, repeating the same routines, walking through a fog that refuses to lift. You wonder if something is wrong with you, or if life itself has forgotten your name. These are not just passing moods, they are invitations, subtle, painful, soul-level questions pressing against the surface of your awareness. Carl Jung taught that suffering is never without meaning. In fact, he believed that pain is often the language of the soul when words are no longer enough. That deep restlessness you feel, it's not failure, it's the beginning of awakening. You see, we're taught to avoid pain. We learn to push it down, numb it, medicate it, or explain it away with logic. But Jung knew, whatever we avoid grows. Whatever we silence returns, and whatever we refuse to confront becomes our fate. Pain is not the end of the story. It's the first chapter of transformation. You may feel lost right now, confused, disconnected from your purpose. But that sense of disorientation is part of the process. It means that something old is falling apart, because something new is waiting to be born. Imagine your life as a house. Over the years, you've built rooms, expectations, identities, habits, relationships. But suddenly cracks appear. The walls tremble. What once felt safe now feels suffocating. You think you're breaking down, but perhaps you're simply outgrowing the space you once lived in. Jung would tell you the breakdown is not the problem. The refusal to listen is. The pain you carry, be it from a broken relationship, a lost job, an inner emptiness you can't name, isn't meaningless. It's a signal, a signpost from the unconscious, a sacred summons to turn inward and pay attention. What does your suffering want you to notice? What have you been avoiding that now demands your honesty? This is not about blame, it's about awareness. True healing doesn't come from denying the wound. It comes from walking straight into it, eyes open, heart willing. And here is a truth worth holding. You are not being punished. You are being invited to stop pretending, invited to stop surviving and start listening, invited to meet the version of yourself that pain is trying to introduce you to. Yes, the process hurts. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it feels unfair, but it is not meaningless. Jung said, only in the darkness can we discover the light. And this, right here, right now, might be the very darkness that leads you there. Have you ever noticed that the same kinds of challenges keep showing up in your life? Different faces, different places, but somehow the same emotional story repeats. The same arguments, the same disappointments, the same fears. And each time you wonder, why does this keep happening to me? Carl Jung had an answer. It's not the world repeating itself. It's your shadow, asking to be seen. The shadow is the part of us we hide, not because it's evil, but because at some point we were taught it was unacceptable, too angry, too sensitive, too needy, too much. So we buried it. We locked it in the basement of our mind and threw away the key. But the unconscious never forgets. And what we bury returns. Not in dreams, not in whispers, but in patterns. Over and over, life reflects the parts of us we've disowned, until we stop running and finally look inward. Maybe the betrayal you experienced wasn't about that person. It was about your fear of abandonment you never healed. Maybe your constant striving for approval isn't ambition. It's the echo of a childhood wound whispering, "You are not enough." Maybe the people who hurt you were simply mirrors and showing you the parts of yourself you've refused to claim. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The shadow isn't here to punish you. It's here to protect you, to alert you to what's unresolved, to offer a chance, not for avoidance, but for integration. And integration means taking responsibility for your emotional history, not by blaming yourself, but by becoming curious. Ask yourself, what emotions make me uncomfortable? What reactions in others trigger something deep in me? What do I judge harshly in others because I secretly reject it in myself? These are doors into the shadow, and every time life repeats a painful pattern, that's not bad luck. It's a sacred message from within. Look here. This is still hurting. This still needs healing. You don't escape your shadow by being positive or pretending everything's okay. You escape it by turning toward it, by sitting with it like an old friend who's been waiting years to tell you the truth. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it will bring tears. But on the other side is freedom. Because once you stop fearing the shadow, it stops needing to control your life. And suddenly, the patterns break, the weight lifts, and for the first time, you begin to live, not by reaction, but by intention. The shadow is not your enemy, it is your unclaimed self. And healing begins the moment you decide to open the door. Think back to a time when life didn't go the way you hoped. A relationship ended when you still had love to give. A job slipped away right when you needed stability. An opportunity you'd poured your heart into vanished. You stared at a closed door, wondering what you did wrong, wondering if you'd failed. But what if you didn't fail? What if that closed door was never meant to be a punishment, but a redirection? Carl Jung believed the psyche has an inner compass, a force pulling us toward growth, even if we don't consciously understand the path. Sometimes that path leads straight into disappointment, but not to hurt us, to guide us. A door closes and something in us breaks open. You see, when we cling to outcomes, we start believing that our worth is tied to success, to validation, to things going as planned. So when life says no, it feels personal, like rejection. But maybe it's not rejection. Maybe it's protection. What if that relationship didn't fall apart? It fell away because it was holding you back from your becoming. What if that job wasn't lost? It was removed so you could finally create something of your own. What if that silence was space being made for something sacred? Jung wrote, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. What feels like an end is often a meeting with your deeper self. That deeper self knows what your conscious mind cannot see, that your journey is not about comfort, but evolution. Sometimes life removes things with force, because we would never let them go willingly. And though it feels cruel in the moment, it is often the only way we grow, the only way we change. So ask yourself, what if life isn't closing this door to stop you, but to set you free? What if the delay is not a denial, but divine timing? What if what you lost wasn't meant to define your future, but to refine your character? We're so quick to mourn what didn't happen that we miss the miracle of what's still unfolding. There is wisdom in the no. There is clarity in the closure. And every time something ends, something else begins. But to see it, we must stop staring at the locked door. We must turn around and look at the horizon we were never meant to miss. That door closed for a reason, and you're still here, wiser, stronger, more aware. What's next may not be what you planned. It might just be something greater than you ever imagined. Think of a diamond, not the polished one gleaming in a storefront. Think of it in its earliest form, buried deep beneath the earth, hidden in darkness, shaped by immense heat and crushing pressure. Without that intensity, It would never become what it's meant to be. Now consider this. What if your life works the same way? Carl Jung believed that our trials, our most painful seasons, are not accidents. They are refining fires. Forces designed not to destroy, but to awaken. Pressure reveals what comfort hides, and fire purifies what is impure. You may not feel strong right now. You may feel worn out, pressed on every side, wondering how much more you can take. But beneath the surface, something sacred is happening. The old parts of you, the fear, the doubt, the outdated stories, are being burned away. What's left is something unshakable, something enduring. Transformation rarely feels gentle. Growth doesn't come in a whisper, it comes in a roar. There's a reason we resist these moments. They're uncomfortable. They force us to let go of what no longer fits. They ask us to trust a process we cannot see. But that's the essence of refinement, surrendering to the forge. Jung said that the most profound changes occur when we embrace the tension between what we are and what we are becoming. That tension, the inner friction you feel, it's not a sign of failure. It's the heat of transformation, the pressure that breaks false identities and reveals the truth of who you really are. You are not being punished. You are being polished. You are not being shattered. You are being shaped. You are not being cast aside. You are being called higher. Yes, the fire is real, the pressure is real, but so is the strength being formed in you. Sometimes we look at our lives and only see what's being taken away. But what if the stripping is sacred? What if the things falling apart are simply things that were never meant to last? A diamond does not form in comfort, and neither does purpose. So when you feel like you're being stretched to your limits, remember this: you are in process, something is unfolding, and the intensity you feel is evidence of your potential. You were never meant to remain uncut. You were made to shine, but first you had to survive the fire. And now, as the pressure builds, so does your strength. This is not your breaking point. It's your becoming point. There's a point in every journey where trying harder no longer works. You push, you plan, you hold on so tightly that your hands begin to tremble, but nothing moves. That's when life is calling you not to fight harder, but to surrender. To many, surrender sounds like failure, like giving up. But Carl Jung saw it differently. For him, surrender wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. It was the turning point where the ego steps back and something deeper takes the lead. You see, suffering isn't born from pain alone, it's born from resistance to what is. We suffer when we grip what's trying to leave, when we demand certainty in a world built on change. And yet, beneath that resistance is fear. Fear that if we let go, we'll lose control. But here's the truth: control is an illusion, and sometimes the only real power is in the letting go. Surrender doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we stop controlling outcomes that were never ours to hold. It means we open to transformation, to flow, to the possibility that life might know more than we do. Think of a river. When you fight the current, you exhaust yourself, thrashing, struggling, resisting the inevitable. But when you surrender, the current carries you. You still feel its power, but now it moves with you, not against you. Jung understood that the unconscious mind isn't trying to sabotage us, it's trying to realign us, to bring us back into balance. But balance doesn't come through force, it comes through trust. What if everything you're clinging to is actually what's holding you back? What if the tension you feel is life trying to move you, but you're refusing to be moved? Letting go isn't passive, it's an act of courage. It takes strength to say, I don't know what comes next, But I trust there's a purpose in this pause. It takes faith to release the need for answers and walk forward anyway. When we surrender, we shift from fear to flow, from force to faith. And that's when something beautiful happens. Doors begin to open that we never knew existed. People show up not by accident, but by alignment. We begin to live not in constant striving, but in quiet listening. Surrender doesn't end your story. It allows your true story to begin. You weren't made to carry everything. You were made to trust something greater. So loosen your grip, take a breath, and let the river carry you where your soul already knows you're meant to go. Have you ever set your sights on something, truly wanted it, and yet somehow you kept tripping on the way there? You made the plans, spoke the affirmations, did everything right, but nothing aligned. Or worse, it fell apart at the final moment. Carl Jung understood this better than most. He called it the conflict between the conscious and unconscious mind. You see, you can consciously want love, but if deep down you believe you're unworthy of being seen, you'll unconsciously push it away. You can chase success. But if your unconscious equates visibility with danger, you'll sabotage every step toward it. You'll miss the meeting, delay the email, choose the partner who's emotionally unavailable. Not because you're weak, but because your unconscious is stronger than your willpower. Jung believed the unconscious isn't a dark force out to ruin your life. It's a vast reservoir of memories, instincts, and buried beliefs trying to protect you, even if that protection keeps you small. Until we bring those patterns into the light, we will keep running in circles, chasing things we aren't prepared to receive. The disconnect between what you say you want and what your life is actually reflecting, that's not random, it's a signal. It means there's an old story beneath the surface that's still driving the narrative. And until you rewrite that story, the ending stays the same. So how do we bridge the gap? First, we become radically honest. Ask yourself, do I truly believe I deserve what I'm asking for? Am I secretly afraid of getting it and what it might change? Have I mistaken busyness for progress and because I'm afraid of stillness? Your unconscious speaks through tension, through emotion, through resistance. It doesn't use words, it uses patterns. And life becomes the stage where those patterns repeat until we finally see them. Second, we stop shaming the sabotage. That part of you that's resisting change, it's not bad, it's scared. It remembers past wounds, past abandonments, past failures. It's trying to keep you safe in the only way it knows how. The goal is not to destroy the unconscious, it's to integrate it. To sit beside the parts of yourself that are afraid and say, I see you, and I'm ready to move forward, with or without fear. That's when life begins to shift. Because once your conscious intentions and unconscious beliefs are in harmony, you don't have to force anything. You become aligned, and in alignment, things move. Not because you pushed harder, but because all of you finally said yes. There's a part of you that you show to the world, and then there's the part you keep hidden, not because it's bad, but because somewhere along the way, you learned it wouldn't be accepted. Carl Jung called this hidden part the shadow. But his vision reached beyond simply confronting it. He believed that life's greatest journey is the path of individuation, the process of becoming whole, not perfect, not polished, whole. To individuate is to bring together all the parts of yourself, the joyful and the grieving, the confident and the insecure, the light and the dark. It's about integration, not self-improvement, not achievement, but the deep inner work of honoring all that you are, especially the parts you've tried to silence. We live in a world obsessed with performance. We're taught to hide our fears, to fix our flaws, to wear masks of strength even when we're breaking inside. But the soul doesn't want perfection. The soul wants truth. And that truth includes your wounds, your jealousy, your guilt, your fear of abandonment, your longing to be loved. These are not signs of failure. They are fragments of your humanity, waiting to be understood, not erased. Individuation is the journey home to yourself, and trials are the road signs. Every time you face difficulty, it's not just a test of endurance, it's an invitation to uncover another part of who you are, a buried belief, a childhood survival strategy, an inner voice you've been ignoring. The conflict you're facing right now, whether in your career, your relationships, or your own mind, is not in the way, it is the way. Because each moment of tension, each emotional trigger is a guidepost. It's saying, there's something here, look closer. Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You grow not by denying your pain, but by sitting with it long enough to hear what it's teaching you. And over time, the walls between your light and your shadow begin to soften. You stop fighting yourself. You stop pretending to be only one thing, and in that acceptance you find strength. This is what wholeness looks like. Not an absence of flaws, but a deep peace with all that you are. And when you begin to live from that place, you speak differently, you love differently, you walk through life with a quiet confidence that doesn't need validation, because you finally know who you are. The journey of individuation is not linear. It's not always graceful. It takes time, it takes courage, and it takes the willingness to turn toward what you've avoided. But as you do, you stop searching outside yourself for completion. You realize that everything you need has always been within you, waiting for permission to come home. Wholeness is not a destination, it's the return to your true self, and that is where the real healing begins. On the surface, nothing seems to be happening. You've been showing up, holding on, trying your best, and yet there are no signs of change, no breakthroughs, no visible reward, just silence. It feels like failure, like your effort doesn't matter, like maybe you're being overlooked by life itself. But let me offer you another perspective. Not everything that grows upward. Some growth moves deeper, down into the soul, into the parts of you no one sees. Think of a tree in a storm. As the wind howls and the rain lashes against it, the tree doesn't rise taller. Instead, it pushes its roots further into the ground. It anchors itself, not in defiance of the storm, but because of it. The storm, then, is not the threat, it's the strengthening. Carl Jung believed that inner stability is born through outer tension. When everything around us feels uncertain, we're given the chance to discover the parts of us that endure, the values that hold firm, the truths that don't shift with circumstance, and that's the miracle. While others may only see your surface, what looks like stillness, deep within, your roots are stretching wider, deeper, stronger. You are becoming unshakable. So if your life feels quiet right now, if you're working through pain that no one else can see, if you feel like your healing is taking too long, trust this. Something important is happening beneath the surface. Your ability to hold steady in the storm is building muscles of patience, resilience, and clarity. You are learning how to bend without breaking, how to stay rooted in your truth when everything else is swaying. This kind of growth isn't flashy, it's not Instagram worthy, it won't win applause, but it's the kind of growth that will sustain you through every season that comes next. We live in a world obsessed with instant results, but the soul takes its time. Jung would remind us that true transformation is slow, deep, and often invisible. So when it seems like your efforts aren't paying off, when it feels like nothing is happening, remember the tree. Its strength is not in how quickly it grows, but in how deeply it roots. You don't need to prove your progress to anyone. You are growing exactly as you should, from the inside out. The storm won't last forever, but what you're building within yourself will. We all crave safety. We build routines, choose predictability, and cling to what we know, even when it no longer fulfills us. There's comfort in the familiar, even when it's quietly stealing our joy. But here's the truth. Comfort is not the same as peace, and safety is not the same as purpose. Carl Jung understood that the soul does not grow in stillness. It grows in motion, in risk, in mystery, and often that means being called away from what feels secure. You may feel that calling now, a quiet discomfort with the life you've built, a sense that something within you wants to expand, but is being kept small. That discomfort isn't random, it's a sacred nudge, a whisper from God saying, "It's time to move." We tend to ignore that whisper. We tell ourselves it's not the right time, that we're too old, too tired, too uncertain, that maybe we should just be grateful for what we have, even if it doesn't feel alive anymore. But safety without growth becomes a cage. And Jung would tell you that the parts of yourself you're avoiding, the path you're afraid to walk, that's exactly where your next transformation lives. Leaving your comfort zone doesn't mean abandoning what matters. It means daring to live with more truth, more fire, more intention. It means listening when life invites you to evolve. And yes, it's scary. Yes, it feels risky. But what if the fear isn't a warning sign, but a threshold? What if stepping out of comfort is how you finally step into yourself? There is something waiting for you outside the lines you've drawn around your life. A version of you that's braver, freer, and more fulfilled. But to meet that version, you must let go of what no longer fits. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That becoming doesn't happen in the safe zone. So if you feel the nudge, don't dismiss it. It's not impatience, it's not rebellion, it's your soul remembering why it came here. And God is not calling you to survive, He's calling you to rise. There is a rhythm to life that we rarely understand while we're in it. We want answers now, we want resolution, clarity, forward motion. We pray, we act, we wait, and still nothing changes. It feels like silence, like delay, like being forgotten by the universe. But Carl Jung would remind us there is no such thing as coincidence, and certainly no such thing as wasted waiting. What feels like stagnation is often sacred preparation. There are things the soul must learn before it's ready to receive, lessons that can't be rushed, strength that only form in stillness, trust that can only grow in the dark. You may think nothing is happening right now, but what if everything is? What if the connections are being woven behind the scenes? What if your unanswered prayers are being rerouted into something better than you had the words to ask for? Jung believed the unconscious is always working, shaping, guiding, moving us toward our deeper purpose, even when our conscious mind is lost in confusion. You're not waiting because you're forgotten. You're waiting because you're being aligned. There's a reason doors didn't open when you knocked. There's a reason the path curved when you wanted it straight. It's not rejection, it's timing, and divine timing is never late, but it's rarely early. We live in a world addicted to speed, But spiritual growth, real transformation, moves in seasons, not seconds. The deeper the purpose, the longer the preparation. Think of the caterpillar in the cocoon. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But inside, every cell is dissolving and being remade. You are not behind, you are becoming. So instead of asking, why isn't it here yet? Try asking, what is this moment trying to teach me? What can I strengthen while I wait? What if this silence is sacred? Jung once wrote, when the soul is ready, things happen. Not when we panic, not when we force, when we're ready. And readiness isn't about perfection, it's about presence. So breathe, surrender to the pause, let go of timelines, and trust the thread that's being woven beyond your view. You may not see the full picture yet, but you are already a part of it. And one day, when you look back, you'll see that the waiting was never empty. It was divine. This is not the end, just a breath between thoughts. The story isn't over yet. But if this message has mirrored something you've been carrying, a silent wait, an old question, a new hope, then we'd be honored if you stayed with us. Subscribing here isn't about following a channel. It's about joining a quiet movement, one that values depth, honesty, and the courage to face what others turn away from. And maybe you know someone who needs to hear this too. Someone who needs to be reminded they're not broken, they're becoming. Share it with them. That simple act could mean everything. What if life isn't happening to you, but through you? What if every frustration, every heartbreak, every person who triggers something deep inside is not the problem, but the mirror? Carl Jung taught that we project the contents of our unconscious mind onto the world around us, not just occasionally, but constantly. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. That person who angers you might be reflecting a part of yourself you've tried to deny. That rejection that cuts so deeply might be mirroring a belief you've long held, that you are unworthy. That situation you can't stop thinking about may not be about the situation at all, but about a story inside you that's waiting to be rewritten. Life is always speaking, and most often it speaks through reflection. So when you feel the sting of discomfort, instead of immediately judging it or escaping it, pause, ask, what is this moment trying to show me about myself? What part of me feels threatened, and why? Am I truly responding to the present, or reacting from an old wound? This is where transformation begins, not in the external fixing of the world, but in the internal awareness of how we are shaping the world we see. Jung called this the process of withdrawing the projections. It means taking back what we've cast out, the blame, the fear, the control, and realizing that what we judged in others was often what we couldn't face in ourselves. That's not an accusation. It's an invitation to grow, to become whole. There is wisdom in every emotional reaction. There is a lesson in every person who irritates you. There is truth hidden in every moment that makes you uncomfortable, but only if you're willing to look. Most people live their entire lives reacting, blind to the patterns, unaware of the inner world shaping the outer one. But you're being invited into deeper vision, to stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin asking, what is this reflecting in me? That question changes everything. It turns pain into a teacher. It turns conflict into clarity. It turns suffering into insight. You begin to see that life is not random. It's rich with meaning if you're willing to see beyond the surface. Jung believed the goal of life is not to be good or right or even happy, but to be whole. And wholeness comes only when we welcome all parts of ourselves back from the mirrors we've placed them in. So next time something upsets you, triggers you, or pulls at your peace, don't turn away. Look in. Look deeply. The soul is speaking, and the world is reflecting it back. Not all fires are meant to burn you down. Some are meant to burn away what no longer belongs. Carl Jung understood suffering not as meaningless cruelty, but as sacred alchemy, a necessary heat that purifies, refines, and reveals. You may be walking through that fire right now. A season of grief, a deep, soul-rattling loss, an ache that seems to have no language. It hurts, and it's okay to admit that. But know this, the pain you feel is not a sign of failure. It's the signal that something deep within you is shifting. Transformation rarely arrives dressed in beauty. It comes wrapped in fire, in endings, in silence. But not to destroy you, to forge you. Think of gold. Before it becomes precious, it must endure intense heat. The fire doesn't ruin the gold. It burns away everything that isn't gold. What you're going through now, the discomfort, the confusion, the loss, might be burning away the lies you believed about yourself, the roles you've outgrown, the fears that no longer deserve to lead your life. Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." But that pain is not without purpose. It cracks open the shell of who you thought you were, so you can meet who you truly are. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. Prepared to stand in your truth. Prepared to live without apology. Prepared to rise. Not as a version of your old self, but as someone entirely new. The fire is real, but so is your resilience. You are being shaped, not shattered. Tempered, not torn apart. What survives this fire will be stronger, wiser, and more free than ever before. So don't rush to escape the heat. Don't numb it. Don't run from it. Let it work through you. Let it burn what was never meant to stay. You are not being destroyed. You are being revealed. This is what becoming looks like. There are moments in life when everything falls apart. You lose something or someone you thought you couldn't live without. The job ends, the relationship shatters, the plans unravel, and all that's left is silence and a strange kind of emptiness. You stand in the wreckage of what used to be, wondering how it all happened and how you're supposed to go on. But what if this isn't the end? What if this is the beginning? Carl Jung believed that breakdowns aren't failures. They are invitations to rebuild your life, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. Because sometimes it takes a collapse to show us what was never solid in the first place. The false identities, the old roles, the fragile structures we called security, but were really scaffolding for our fear. When those fall away, what remains is what's real. And in that raw space, where you're no longer performing, where nothing is working, and your hands are finally empty, something sacred can begin. Breakdown is not destruction. It is initiation. It strips away what's not essential, so you can finally meet what is. It breaks your attachment to how things should be, so you can discover how they're meant to be. And yes, it hurts, it's supposed to, because pain has a way of waking us up to truths we've long ignored. But pain is not your enemy, it's the doorway. You see, the soul doesn't transform through comfort, it transforms through fire, through loss, through surrender. And on the other side of that surrender is rebirth. Jung wrote, "Only what is truly oneself has the power to heal." That power lives in you. It was never in the job, the relationship, the approval, the plan. It was always inside, waiting to be discovered in the dark. So if you feel like you've hit bottom, if the world you built has crumbled beneath your feet, breathe. The breakdown may be the exact thing your soul needed to stop, to shed, to finally rise. This is not the end of your story. It's the plot twist, the one that leads you somewhere you never expected, but always needed to go. And from this moment forward, you don't have to rebuild the same life. You're free to build something real, something true, something yours. Chaos is not the enemy. In fact, Carl Jung believed it is essential, because before clarity comes confusion, before balance comes the swing between extremes, and before integration comes the confrontation of opposites. This is the nature of transformation. You may feel lost right now, emotionally torn in two. One part of you wants change, the other clings to the familiar. One part feels hopeful, the other aches with fear. You wonder how both can exist inside the same body, the same mind. But Jung would tell you that tension is not a mistake. It's the very energy that fuels your growth. He called it the union of opposites. And he believed that until we can hold our contradictions, light and shadow, love and anger, courage and doubt, we cannot become whole. So if your life feels messy, disorganized, out of alignment, good. It means something real is moving. Chaos isn't evidence that you're broken. It's evidence that the old structures are breaking down, so something new can take form. Think of a forest after a storm. Branches fallen, soil torn. It looks like devastation. But within days, new life begins to emerge. Nutrients are returned to the ground. Light reaches places it couldn't before. That storm wasn't destruction. It was clearing space. You may not yet see what is being cleared in your life, but trust, something is being made ready. The mind craves certainty, the heart craves peace, but the soul craves truth. And truth often arrives in paradox. Joy woven into sorrow, stillness born from struggle, light emerging from your deepest night. You don't have to resolve it all at once. You don't have to choose one part of yourself over another. You only need to stay present and allow the opposites within you to exist without shame. This is where clarity is born, not from fixing but from holding, not from forcing balance but allowing tension to reveal its own rhythm. So if you feel pulled apart, don't panic. You are being expanded. Your understanding is deepening. Your heart is being stretched to hold more than it ever could before. And the chaos you feel today may be the exact threshold you must cross to find your next truth. Jung knew, order is not the absence of chaos. It is what emerges when chaos has done its work. So breathe. Let the storm pass through. Clarity is coming, and when it does, you'll know it wasn't random. It was necessary. You may not realize it yet, but your healing doesn't end with you. The pain you've survived, the courage you found in dark places, the lessons you've earned through heartbreak and uncertainty, they are not just for your growth, they are seeds, and when shared, they become light for others. Carl Jung believed that the process of individuation, of becoming whole, was not a selfish path, it was sacred service. Because every time one person becomes more conscious, more integrated, more free, the entire human story moves forward. Your breakthrough can become someone else's compass, your truth, someone else's permission. Think of a ripple in still water. You drop a stone, and the circles move outward. They touch things far beyond what the eye can see. That's what your healing does. When you begin to live from your authentic self, you naturally give others the courage to do the same, without preaching, without performing, just by being. Your presence, when rooted in truth, becomes powerful. That's why your story matters. The nights you cried in silence, the doubts you battled alone, the parts of yourself you learned to accept. They carry weight, not just for you, but for the one who will one day hear your words and think, if they made it through that, maybe I can too. There is someone right now in the place you once were, struggling, questioning, hoping for a sign. You may not know their name, you may never meet them, but your healing, your willingness to rise, can become their proof that healing is possible. That's the ripple. We think our stories are small, but they echo, and the deeper your transformation, the farther your echo travels. Jung understood this, that when we reclaim the rejected parts of ourselves, we help others reclaim their own. It's not about having all the answers. It's about living with integrity, with presence, with love rooted in experience. You don't have to be a teacher or a speaker or a healer. Just be real, be kind, be human. That is enough. So don't underestimate the power of your path. The struggles you've survived might become someone else's survival map, and the light you've found in the darkness might be the exact light someone else needs to find their way out. Letting go is one of the hardest things we're ever asked to do. Not because we don't want to grow, but because we've built our lives around what now needs to be released. A relationship, a role, a belief we've carried for years. Even when it no longer serves us, we hold on, because it's familiar, because it once protected us, because change feels like loss. But Carl Jung understood, there can be no true transformation without letting go. He wrote, "We must be able to let go of the life we have planned, so as to accept the life that is waiting for us." The soul cannot evolve while clinging to its past identity. Growth demands space, and space requires surrender. Letting go is not weakness. It's a sacred clearing. It's saying, this no longer aligns with who I'm becoming, and trusting that something better is already on its way. But here's the truth many avoid. Letting go will feel like dying, because in some ways, it is. The version of you that once needed this person, this pattern, this illusion, is being laid to rest, and in its place, something new can rise. But only if your hands are open, only if your heart is willing to trust the space in between. You see, God cannot place new gifts into clenched fists. He cannot pour fresh water into a vessel that's already full. To receive what is next, you must be willing to release what was. That doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean discarding every part of your past. It means honoring what once was, while no longer letting it define who you are becoming. Letting go is not an ending, it's an opening. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable, but that discomfort is your soul stretching, making room for joy that isn't dependent, for peace that isn't circumstantial, for a life that isn't built on fear. Ask yourself, what are you still holding that you've already outgrown? What are you clinging to? Because it feels safer than the unknown. The truth is, you don't have to have all the answers to let go. You just have to believe that what's ahead is worth the release. This is not loss, it's preparation. You're not being emptied, you're being made ready. And when your hands are finally open, you'll see that what's coming was always meant for you. Have you ever experienced a moment that felt too perfect to be random? You think of someone and they call. You're struggling silently, and the right message finds you at just the right time. A door opens that you didn't even know existed, but somehow it leads exactly where you needed to go. Carl Jung called this synchronicity a meaningful coincidence, an invisible thread weaving the inner world with the outer one. He believed that when we do the deep inner work, when we begin to align with who we truly are, life begins to respond, not always in grand, dramatic ways, but in subtle, sacred patterns. It's not magic, it's alignment, because the universe doesn't respond to words. It responds to frequency, to energy, to truth. When your outer life begins to reflect your inner healing, that's synchronicity. When the job appears that matches your gifts, when the relationship forms after you finally let go of fear, when opportunities flow not from effort alone, but from presence, from clarity, from alignment with something greater. These are not accidents, they are signs that your soul and the world around you are finally in conversation. But here's the part most people miss. Synchronicity doesn't come from chasing, it comes from surrender. It arrives when we stop forcing timelines, when we stop bargaining with life, when we stop trying to make things happen and begin to trust that what's meant for us is already on its way. Faith is the channel, not passive waiting, but active openness. That means being ready to receive, even if you don't know what's coming. It means walking through life with your hands unclenched, your eyes aware, your heart soft. And when you live that way, you begin to notice the patterns. You start to sense the rhythm underneath the noise, and you no longer see events as isolated. You begin to feel connected. That's when life gets quiet, but alive. That's when the right people arrive, when the right words find you, when the detour turns out to be the destination. Jung believed that synchronicity is a confirmation. You're on the path, not because everything is easy, but because everything is meaningful. So, if things are beginning to click, trust it. If the timing feels too precise to be coincidence, trust it. And if the answer shows up just after the surrender, that's not luck, that's alignment. Keep doing the inner work, keep listening, keep trusting that life is not ignoring you, it's responding to you. Because when your soul says yes, the universe always hears it and it always answers. Imagine this. You're walking through life with a heavy backpack strapped to your shoulders. At first it's manageable. You barely notice it, but over time it grows heavier. Inside are stones. Some you packed yourself. Memories, regrets, guilt. Others were handed to you, words spoken long ago, losses you never asked for, responsibilities you never chose. One by one they were placed inside. And now, years later, you're tired. But you've carried it so long you've forgotten what it feels like to walk free. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious is not just a collection of forgotten thoughts. It's a vault of emotional weight. The past doesn't disappear. It embeds itself in our posture, our choices, our relationships. We carry what we refuse to process, and the heavier it becomes, the more it shapes us. We shrink, we hesitate, we stay in situations not because they're right, but because we no longer believe we deserve better. But what if it doesn't have to stay this way? What if today is the day you stop and begin to unpack? You take off the backpack, you open it, and you examine each stone. This one? The mistake you still punish yourself for. This one? The voice that told you love had to be earned. This one? The silent grief you've never given space to breathe. One by one, you name them, you feel them, and then you place them down. Not because they weren't real, but because you don't need to carry them anymore. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing freedom over weight, clarity over shame, presence over pain. We were never meant to carry everything forever. You see, a full backpack doesn't just slow you down, it blinds you to what's possible. There are doors you'll never open if your hands are too full. Paths you'll never walk if your body is bent in exhaustion. Joy you'll never feel if your heart is still guarding an old wound. So take the pause, take off the weight. Jung taught that the path to wholeness is not just upward, it's inward. And part of that path is recognizing what we've carried for too long. You don't need all of it, you never did. And the moment you release it, stone by stone, you begin to remember who you are beneath the weight. Lighter, clearer, ready to walk with your head lifted and your soul unburdened. Not all change comes with thunder. Sometimes it arrives like the morning light, quiet, soft, unnoticed, until suddenly you realize it's here. Carl Jung understood that transformation is rarely a moment, it's a process, and often the most powerful shifts begin in silence. You may be looking for a sign, a dramatic breakthrough, a voice from above, a moment of clarity that changes everything. But real change is often quieter than that. It's a moment of peace where there was once anxiety, a deep breath where there used to be panic, a feeling of stillness where there used to be noise. That's transformation, not flashy, but foundational. You don't wake up one day completely healed. You simply notice that something has softened, you respond differently, you choose better. You carry yourself with a quiet strength that wasn't there before, and that's the miracle. You've changed without forcing it. Because healing doesn't come from control, it comes from surrender, from patience, from showing up each day, even when nothing seems to be shifting. Until one day you realize you are not the same. You no longer live in reaction. You no longer run from discomfort, you no longer beg the world to define you. You are anchored now, the winds still blow, but you are steady. That is the gentle arrival of change. You won't always see it coming, it won't always announce itself, but you'll feel it, in the ease of your breath, in the softness of your thoughts, in the way you forgive yourself a little more easily. And when it comes, honor it. Don't rush past it. Don't tell yourself it's not enough. This is the moment you've been waiting for. Not the end, but the beginning of a new rhythm. Jung taught that integration happens in layers, one truth at a time, one step at a time, and each layer brings you closer to wholeness. So if life feels a little quieter now, a little lighter, a little more open, you're not imagining it. Something in you has shifted. You're no longer surviving the past. You're beginning to live from your truth. And that is what change looks like. There comes a point on every journey where the light begins to fade. The familiar path disappears. The answers go quiet. And suddenly, you are walking in the dark. It feels disorienting, lonely, even frightening. But Carl Jung would tell you, this darkness is not the end. It's the womb of something new. He believed that the greatest treasures of the soul are found in the places we fear to go. That facing the shadow is not a descent into despair, but a return to depth. Because light is born from darkness. There is no other way. You see, we are taught to avoid the dark, to fill it with noise, distraction, denial. But when we turn away from our pain, we turn away from our healing. When we run from our fears, we abandon the parts of ourselves that need the most love. The darkness is not here to punish you. It's here to reveal you. It's in the quiet moments, when the world stops applauding, when the outer rewards fall away, that you begin to hear your own soul again. In the dark, you remember what really matters. In the dark, you meet the parts of yourself that are still waiting to be held. And in the dark, if you are willing to stay, you begin to change. Not all growth is visible. Not all strength is loud. Some of the most important transformation happens in silence, beneath the surface. But this takes faith. Faith that even though you cannot see the next step, it exists. Faith that even when you feel lost, you are still being led. Faith that even when everything around you seems to crumble, you are not being abandoned. You are being rebuilt. Jung wrote, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. Because when you've walked through your own shadows, you become a light for others, not because you've avoided pain, but because you've survived it." So if you are in that place now, the in-between, the uncertain, the quiet void, don't rush to escape it. Breathe, be still, listen. You're not alone, you're not broken, you're becoming. The darkness is not the enemy, it's the beginning. And if you stay long enough, you'll start to see it, the first flicker of light rising from within you. This journey you're on, it's not random. The trials you've faced, the losses you've endured, the questions you've asked in the middle of sleepless nights, they are not meaningless. They are the shaping. Carl Jung believed that suffering, when made conscious, becomes sacred. It becomes a bridge between who you once were and who you were always meant to become. You see, the pain didn't come to destroy you. It came to carve space inside you for something eternal, something vast, something radiant. You are not just a person who's been hurt. You are a person who has healed, who has grown, who has risen. And that healing is not only for you. You carry light now, a light that wasn't born from ease or comfort, but from facing the darkness and choosing to continue anyway. That light, it's for others too, because someone, somewhere, is still in the place you just left, still buried under the weight you've already laid down, still wondering if they'll ever make it through. And your story, your truth, your presence, might be the light that helps them see their way forward. Jung taught that healing is never isolated. Every person who awakens becomes a light for the collective. Every soul that integrates its pain brings more wholeness into the world. You don't have to be perfect to shine. You don't have to be finished to be useful. You just have to be honest. Let your journey speak. Let your scars become signposts. Let your quiet strength become a shelter for others. Because your life, exactly as it is sacred material. And the more you honor it, the more meaning it will reveal. This is your sacred responsibility, and it is also your sacred privilege to take the story you've lived, the fire you've walked through, and use it to light the path for someone else. That's legacy. That's purpose. That's what it means to be part of something greater than yourself. So never forget, you were not made for darkness. You were made to walk through it and carry the light back with you. And now that you have, the world is waiting for what only you can give. Your story matters, your presence matters, and someone else's healing may begin with your courage to speak it. If these reflections brought even a flicker of light to your day, we invite you to stay close. This space isn't loud, it's not for rushing or fixing. It's a place for people who are learning to live from their depth, who carry quiet strength and sacred questions. Subscribing isn't joining a trend, it's giving yourself a place to return to when the world becomes too fast, too shallow, too demanding. And if someone came to mind while you were watching, someone who needs gentleness more than advice, send this to them. You never know what it might open. Thank you for walking this far with us. Your presence matters more than you know.